I think for the legal teams I was working with at the time, was like, hey, it's not broken. We don't want to fix it. One thing I've learned in this job is once you can start to show people the value that comes from operating in a lean fashion, the more they see the benefits for them, they're going to buy in more and more.
Today, I'm excited to welcome Andy Shapiro-Zysk to the show. Now, Andy is a colleague of Jacqueline Harder and Danny Bradford, who I've had on in previous episodes. Now, Andy, Danny, and Jacqueline all work for a law firm called Barry, Appelman, and Leiden, or BAL as they go. And basically, Andy's job is the senior manager for reporting and analytics. And so his team is actually working to just really streamline and automate many of the various systems and reports and things that the law firm needs to service clients. And as you're going to hear, they're using lean in a big way to really streamline the way that they're going about this work. And then are also using different lean principles, like some of the various ways to make sure that, you know, they're serving their customers as well as they can. And so just another example of how lean thinking truly knows no boundaries. And it really is it's officially infiltrated, I think, every industry in the entire world. So really fun episode to just to hear a different take on how these trusted tools that we all know so well work anywhere. Now, show notes for this episode, which will include links to everything Andy and I talk about, can be found over at gembapodcast.com. Just look for episode 342. Again, gembapodcast.com, and look for episode 342. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. Andy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well, Ron. Thanks again for having me on the show.
Yeah, well, our friend, mutual friend, Jacqueline Harder, who was previously on the podcast, introduced us. So I'm excited to have you on, and it's always interesting, hearing from folks in different industries, and talking about the way that they're using continuous improvement and using lean. And so I'll let you kind of introduce yourself here in a second and a little bit more about your company. But Andy, I know you've listened to the show. Before we kind of get rolling, we like our guests to share a quote. So do you have one that you want to open up with?
Sure. One quote that speaks to me with respect to lean principles is one by Steve Jobs, which is, if you define the problem correctly, you almost have the solution.
Gosh.
So to me, that's, all about what are we trying to solve, right? It's taking a step back and looking at the problem in a holistic fashion.
Yes.
And then will set us up for success.
So good. So good. We do a lot of coaching here at Gemba Academy in our various certification programs. And we spend a lot of time when we're in that kind of project selection phase and writing a good, I tell people, and I mean it at the bottom of my heart, fixing issues is actually the easy part, but deeply understanding the problem, quantifying the problem with facts and data and different things like that. That's what's hard, So yeah, such a great quote. All right. Well, Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about your background, how you first got introduced to continuous improvement, and then tell us what you're up to these days over at Barry, Appelman, and Leiden, or BAL, I guess, as you guys go by.
Yeah. I'd love to. I found that my career path has been, I think, like a lot of people, a little circuitous. I originally went to law school. Took and passed the bar exam. This was almost 20 years ago. And I just happened to graduate during the height of the recession in 2008 and had a hard time initially, finding a job, as many new law school graduates did at the time. And I threw out what was initially a temporary contract position. I sort of fell in the whole world of data analytics, reporting, and within the legal industry.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at the time at in-house counsel for a large national company. And the VP I was working for said, "Hey, we got this project. We're going to start doing online matter management and e-billing, and we need somebody to be the project lead from the business on that." And then once we, got that off and running, it was like, "Hey, we need somebody to manage it. We need somebody to do the reporting." And
Mm.
so I started doing that for a number of years, which is something I never went to school for it. And actually, prior to that, prior to going to law school, I had worked for 8 years at a small boutique immigration law firm in Buffalo, New York, where I'm originally from. And so about 7 years ago, I saw a job posting to work for an immigration law firm doing reporting. And I was like, "Hey, this is great." I have, 8 years of experience doing one, 6 years of experience doing the other. And, after a few other job changes, ended up at Barry Appleman Leiden at BAL. Now I've been at BAL for, I think, going on 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm the senior manager of reporting and data analytics. I have a team of about 10 business intelligence professionals spread out across a number of our different offices, primarily our Dallas office, while I'm based in Boston.
Got it. Got it. So I'm curious, your formal education, what kind of lawyer were you originally planning to be?
I was actually looking at immigration law. So
Okay.
the fact that I'm now in the immigration law sphere, but not practicing, but been supporting the attorneys to do that work, supporting them with the data, with the analysis that they need to do their jobs better. I still get I get a lot of satisfaction out of that because I'm still in an industry that I care about a lot.
Now, be honest. Do you ever find yourself saying, "Come on, man, this is what you should do," to the lawyer?
I used to think that many, many years ago, but I've sort of moved past that now, and
Yeah.
I'm very happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like I found the sweet spot where I was meant to be.
I got to imagine having that background, though, that formal education's got to be helpful, even on your analytics side, right? Because you at least understand what's going on over there, right? So.
Definitely. And, sort of speaking to lean, one of the things that, I believe one of the 8 ways is, underutilizing your talent, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
One of the things I do with my team members when they join, most of the people who join my team don't have a legal background, don't know anything about immigration law. They went to school for computer science.
Mm-hmm.
They've done coding, all this stuff that I didn't do. I've learned all that stuff on the job. And one of the things that me and the manager who's under me that we really stressed with our team is we really want you to learn this stuff, right? You're going to do your job better and do it faster and do it more efficient if you understand the subject matter.
Yeah.
Right. So, the firm offers all these introductory trainings on what all the different visa categories are, what the different immigration processes are.
Mm-hmm.
And I also hold sort of I call them teachable moments. Once a month, we have our team monthly meeting. And I sort of also have open office hours where, hey, if you want to learn something, if you want to learn about the H-1B visa process, if you want to learn about how the green card process works, I'm happy to sit down, take an hour and walk you through it, right? Because I think they're going to, and I think I just really enjoy the teaching part of it and sharing that knowledge, but I think it also really helps them do their job better because they're not going to waste time going back. So if an attorney reaches out to our team and says, "Oh, I want a report to help me analyze what types of jobs our clients are putting their H-1B employees into," right?
Mm-hmm.
If my person has to take time to be like, "Well, can you explain to me like what you mean by H-1B visa and what are the different things I should think about?" And, they get that. They already know what to look for, right? So that's something that, I really try to stress that education piece.
Got it. So I definitely want to jump into how you guys are using Lean, maybe even starting with how you were introduced to Lean. But before then, so you're the senior manager of reporting and analytics. So what do you do? Like, what's that look like on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. As a whole, I can sort of get to my specific role in a second, but as a whole, our function, like I said, we have a team of 10. We support save for a few other teams within the firm, like our finance group and maybe our HR group, who have some of their own internal reporting resources, pretty much everything else comes to my team. That's both our customers are both our internal customers, our colleagues, as well as our clients that have engaged the firm, and we provide all sorts of data reporting and analytics. We look at we do scheduled reporting. We do that's where we might deliver a report or an analysis on a every Monday or once a month or every quarter. Ad hoc reporting, that's where someone will reach out to my team and say, hey, I want to know this, and we work on it. As well as we support all of our self-serve options within Cobalt, which is BAL's proprietary case management software.
Mm-hmm.
So we have within that tool embedded, we have both tabular reporting that anybody can run, as well as we now have interactive dashboards.
Mm-hmm.
So everything we pull in there could be case data, it could be billing data, SLA compliance data, surveys. We have surveys. We use NPS surveys, billing forecasts, like a whole bunch of stuff. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
much anything that people are putting into Cobalt, or pretty much we have access to it.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk lean. How were you introduced to it?
So introduced to lean, it's going back to what you said earlier, Jacqueline.
Yeah. Okay.
I consider Jacqueline not only a colleague but a friend. She's great. She's our firm senior manager of operational excellence. When she joined the firm, after I did, and right off the bat, put together a lean course, wanted to introduce lean concepts, and when I had my lean meeting with her and just in other conversations we've had together, I had all these light bulbs going off because I was like, we're already doing this, right? I was doing lean and didn't know I was doing lean. Like I didn't really, I think I've gone through most of my career like practicing lean, but not ever knowing it as a concept, right? It's sort of, I've been introduced to that, as a concept. So that's how I got introduced to it. And now when you sort of focus more on it as a concept, you can, I think, even focus your efforts even more because now you have that structure, that framework within the work.
Well, the thing that I'm gathering just from talking, with you and Jacqueline is you don't necessarily have a lean program per se. It just seems to be sort of how many of you are doing your daily work. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that is a fair assessment. Vince Damasio, who's our CIO, he's really sort of developed this culture within the firm, especially when it comes to our ops teams who do the support work for our legal teams. A lot of it is about how can we use automation more. We've developed a number of bots who take a lot of the manual work out. Take care of those repeatable tasks that waste time. Move fast, fail fast, keep going. And so, bringing Jacqueline on, who then sort of helped, spread the love of lean throughout our organization, has been really helpful. And I think we're, looking at it again through a lean lens, I think more frequently, even though we've been doing it,
Yeah. Now, so, I mean, in most organizations, and I'm sure BAL is not exempt from this, but in most organizations, when you're introducing something like lean or any sort of something different, there can be and usually is some form of resistance, or because change is hard, right? I mean, did you guys run into any of that early on? I mean, I don't ask you to call out, oh yeah, Jim, he was a real, What do you think?
I haven't seen it. And again, I think it's because my team, my personal fiefdom, I've sort of always tried to work in this faster way. But I think within our organization, within our ops group, and I haven't really seen that. But again, maybe there were some of those growing pains before I came on board. I think maybe they've already gone through those growing pains by the time I came on board, 2.5 years ago. But one thing I will say in terms of that pushback, one of the stories I wanted to share with you about how, because I think in terms of lean principles and lean activities, I see that within my team, how my team operates, but also how we help through what we do,
Mm,
how we help our colleagues and help our firm be lean on a broader basis, right? How we're sharing that lean throughout the firm. And one story that I always bring up to people when I'm trying to sort of sell reporting and sell the value of data analytics is when I, first started working at a law firm doing the job I'm doing now. The firm it wasn't BAL, it was a prior firm where I came on board and everybody was doing everything on spreadsheets,
mm,
right? They weren't putting stuff into a database. They were passing spreadsheets around on computers, constantly reinventing the wheel. There was tons of over processing, tons of
hmm
redundant work. And I was like, why are you guys doing this? Like this doesn't make any sense.
hmm
And they're like, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
And I think for the legal teams I was working with at the time was like, hey, it's not broken. We don't want to fix it. But one thing I've learned in this job is once you can start to show people the value that comes from operating in a lean fashion, the more they see the benefits for them, they're going to buy in more and more.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and, so it sort of came to the point where I'm like telling people like, hey, if we do it this way, you're going to be less busy. You're going to be more efficient, right?
hmm
We don't have to hire as much headcount because you're not like having people do all this manual work.
hmm
And then some of my like victories, I feel like were after a few years at that firm, everybody in my office was like, hey, we got a problem. Can we use reporting?
Yeah.
Can we automate this in some way?
hmm
There has to be some other way we can do this. And some of the people who pushed back initially were my biggest converts.
Yeah.
To see and then that was a feedback loop where it was like, hey, like to all their employees, it was like, hey, make sure you're putting this in the database because I want my report to be accurate, and so it just strengthened itself once they bought in. So I think that's one way you overcome some of that pushback.
Got it. So you've mentioned automating several times now. So one of the questions that I like to ask folks that are working sort of in your type of a world is, how do you ensure that you don't automate waste?
Good question. I think it's also like that quote I brought up at the outset, right? You have to define the problem 1st.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at your process, you walk through the process that's currently happening before you automate it. And you say, okay, where is the waste in the current process? And if we're going to automate this and take out all these manual steps and re-steps and re-verification that's happening, let's not bake that waste into the
Right.
automated process, right?
Right.
I'm sure that happens, but also at the same time, you just can't set a process and just forget about it either, right?
Mhm.
You have to come back to and see how you can make it better.
Mhm.
And one thing that I've been very proud of in our team, and it wasn't anything that I developed. It was something that, sure, as the head of the function, I drove it, but it was actually people on my team who had these ideas of how we can make things better, and I championed them to do that, and we did it. And when I first joined BAL, the team that I now supervise had been sort of tossed around a little bit. They were trying to find the right home, and we've settled in a great space now. And they were doing, so when I talked about the scheduled reporting before, this would be like where a legal team or a client would say, hey, I want that list of all my active projects, send that to me every Monday. And what was happening is we had it coded like in SQL. And what was happening is there were certain people on the team whose pretty much full-time job was just every day looking at the list of scheduled reports they had to run, format, attach to an email, send the email out to the person. As you can imagine, sure, it might take 10, 15 minutes per report, but if you have hundreds of reports, you're wasting a lot of time.
Mhm.
And I'm like, why are we doing this, right? What can we do to make this better? What can we do to make it much more efficient? And so using Python, which is another coding language, we've been able to now, for all of our scheduled reporting, which now numbers over, I don't know, it's over 300 reports. We basically build the report, we build it with SQL, put it into Python. We have a whole homegrown automation system we've developed using Python. And basically every day we click a button and it runs all the reports. It opens them, it runs the report, formats it, attaches it to an email, sends the email. And we also, I know this is also another lean principle, is measuring your results, right? Measuring, where we were, where we are now, and what have we achieved, and what have we saved. And every single day, the system, we also built this into the automation. I get an email every day that tells me, okay, as of this date, you've cumulatively, since you set up this automation process, this is how many reports have been sent out automated and how much time that saved. And we've sent out, I think, when I put together some of my notes for today's call, we had been over 12,000 reports that have been sent out via automation. I mean, and it's saved, I added it up, it's about over a year's worth of work in terms of hours. And so that's something that we developed since I've been on board that, like I said, I've been very proud of. And right now we're actually, because we also use OKRs, and we're actually spending this quarter looking to see how we can make it even better. Right? How can we optimize it even further? Where is some of the waste? Even though it's automated, even though we're sending all this stuff out, there's probably better ways to do it even better. How can it be faster? How can we take some of the little additional steps we have in there where we set them up? So that's one thing we're focused on right now.
Yeah. You just speaking about automation. I actually use this software called it's Text Expander is the name of the software. And the email that you got when we're preparing for the podcast, where it's got all the instructions and how to schedule it and all that kind of stuff. Like I used to, back in the day, I would kind of sort of like type that up, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'd say the same thing every time. So now I just hit like semicolon P that's my shortcut on my keyboard, and boom, all that whole text is populated in there, and I get an email every month saying, oh, you saved this much time typing, all that. But I use it for several other things, it's simple little automation hacks. And I know you guys are doing way more than that, but I think folks, just any one of us who have to do things, maybe you have to type a similar type of email, or I know I used to use like different email signatures was another hack I had. I had like 8 different signatures and they all said different things, right? And it had a message in the body of the email as well. So just little things like that where you can just save a tremendous amount of time when you've got to do, repetitive tasks like that.
Yeah, and I really encourage your listeners too. I mean, there's so many different tools out there now. I mean, if you Google automation, right, there's tons of different, some of them open source, some not open source, but tons of tools out there to help you automate things you're doing. Whether it's you work for a nonprofit and you're using Zoom and you're using Eventbrite, right? There's things that help you automate the communication between those two applications. So like I said, we're doing a lot with Python because Python's really a great coding tool for automation. But I know there's other, we actually have an RPA group within the firm, a robotic process automation group, whose sole focus is just that. Let's develop bots. Let's develop these automated processes to, automate as much as possible within the firm. Yeah, no, for sure. Now, do you guys get into any experience like integrating different pieces of software together as part of the automation, or, what I mean? Or is it basically just kind of writing scripts for certain tasks? No, I believe, again, I'm probably not I don't want to speak too much of this because it's out of my purview a little bit, but I know from talking to my colleagues, I know like Danny Bradford, who I believe was on the podcast with you. He's in charge of our professional services. It was. Now I remember. It was. I remember. I couldn't remember if it was with your company. I've talked to so many people, but no, I do remember that now. And he's in charge of our APIs and all the different data integrations. That's right. So that plays a big part in a lot of our efforts as well. Good stuff. So maybe share just as we kind of approach the end here, maybe share some more examples of how your team is operating with Lean, maybe some case studies or some success stories, or even some things that didn't work out and what you learned from that. Sure. Within our team, aside from the automation piece, we also are very big on SOPs, standard operating procedures. We're always looking at our processes and we when we develop an SOP, we take the time to sit the team down and say, okay, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? Let's decide, let's ensure that we're all doing it the same way. Let's ensure that we're doing it the best way possible. And let's ensure that moving forward, you're all doing it this way.
Yeah.
So we're churning out SOPs, at least once a month, and we store them, in a shared drive where they can't get, put them in PDFs. Nobody can mess with them unless we decide to. And we're doing that just to reduce errors, reduce rework, right? Make sure they're following the best practices. Sometimes we will find that, using SQL, you may find that there's 2 or 3 different ways to get the data you want. There's one way that's much more efficient, and we want to make sure everybody's using that type of way of doing it. So SOPs is one. We also have internal SLAs within our team to manage our inventory. And we, make it a point to really communicate those on a regular basis and have pretty strict adherence to them. So we're measuring that, are we getting so basically what happens if somebody wants a report or an analysis or whatever it might be from my team, they have to send an email to we have at BAL, we have like a hashtag system, like you email hashtag reporting. And what it does is it automatically creates a ticket in our ticketing system, and automatically then gets emailed to my team manager, and then we can assign the things out. But we have a very strict turnaround time on the tickets that come into us. These are all our own internal SLAs we've set up, and so we monitor those quite closely. And when they're missed, we want to know why.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, we do to manage our inventory, because our inventory can get quite large sometimes. And then, like I said, we've also developed a culture of learning so that we don't underutilize our employees. I would say right now in any given quarter, I have at least 2 team members out of my team of 10 who are in some type of further training to grow as a professional, whether it's advanced coding skills, whether it's training on a new type of business intelligence tool that we haven't yet introduced at BAL, but we want to. And I want to make sure that I have some of those SMEs on my team. And I always tell them, like, hey, I budget training dollars every year. Use them, right?
Yeah.
We want to ensure that no matter where you go after BAL, you're going to leave BAL a better person than when you came to BAL.
Yeah.
And so that training piece is really, really, really important to me.
Got it.
And one thing I can tell you in terms of another story and another anecdote is around, I'll just say tasks. So basically, we do have self-service reports. So in our case management, within our Cobalt, our proprietary case management tool, there are things called tasks. And this is like for the legal assistants and the paralegals, like, hey, on this case, by this date, you should send out application forms for signature. You should file the case with the government, right? And all of that's built into the system to ensure that cases are moving along as quickly as they should be. And what teams were doing in the past is they would either go into Cobalt, look at their cases, individually look up all their tasks, or they could use one of the task reports that my team developed, self-serve, go and run it and see all their tasks. But then we sort of took that a step further recently, and we've pretty much taken the human element out of all that running and reviewing. So what we do now is we actually run reports. We've written code that will say, okay, for a particular client team who manages a certain client account, look at all the tasks they have upcoming within the next, I can't remember, it's 1 or 2 weeks. And the report will automatically run it just for that person, automatically attach to an email, and automatically send it to that person. So this is a way of keeping, so people don't have to take time to go run a report. They don't have to take time to go and look through other cases. They open their email, they open an attachment, and boom, they're all your priority tasks you need to work on. And it's, it's individually sent to each person. So a team manager is taking time to cut it up in Excel and email it manually out to everybody. So that's something we've recently done too that I think is a really good example of how we've been able to introduce more of a lean concept.
Nice. So what are your thoughts then over the next year or so, for what would you like to see happen, or how would you like to see your team take the next step with continuous improvement with lean?
Yeah, the one thing we're focused on right now, as we go into this quarter and next year, is we want to lessen the I hate to use the word burden, because I think reporting is never a burden. It's great. But to reduce the amount of reporting that our legal teams have to do themselves. So even though we have self-service reporting, through speaking with our internal customers, we found that they may run some of those self-service reports, but then they're taking time to do additional things to those reports, right? They may be adding a pivot and then they're breaking it up and sharing it with other people within their team, or they're escalating certain things to their managers, and we want to get to the point where we can take even more of that off of their plate, so that they can focus on doing legal work and not taking time focused on reporting. So it's sort of more of this idea of like, okay, how can we automate more reporting? How can we help to focus them on the stuff that's the most important things they need to be getting out of reporting? So whether that's, creating more dashboards that, bring data right up to their eyes in a very summarized fashion very quickly, or whether that's doing more automated emailing of stuff they need to work on. So that's one area that we really want to dive deeper into, so that the firm can operate leaner, right? They don't, you don't want people working overtime or having to hire more people just because people are taking, an hour or two out of their week to run reports. So that's something that we're moving to do and are very excited about. We've already had 2 different focus groups, and again, defining the problem, right? So we brought together a number of our different legal team managers, attorneys, and said, okay, what are some of the things you do on a regular basis once you get a report from us that maybe we don't know you're doing, but we should know you're doing, so we can make it better and optimize it and make it leaner? And so we've had a number of those meetings already and are moving in that direction.
Got it. Yeah, I was just actually looking up on our podcast page. So yeah, Danny came on in episode 334, the benefits of system integration. Yeah, that was a good one. And then, yeah, Jacqueline was episode 320. I think you're the third one, or I hope I'm not missing someone.
I think I'm the third. I'm the third.
Yeah. I feel bad for I remembered Danny's episode, but I couldn't remember if he was, honestly, he was with BAL or not. I didn't want to say anything. So yeah, we'll give Danny a shout out. So yeah, well, good stuff. Well, hey, Andy, if folks want to connect with you, maybe to learn more or just connect with you, what's the best way?
I would say 2 ways. I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, under my name, Andrew Shapiro-Zysk. Also, they can always feel free to drop me an email. It's A Shapiro-Zysk. It's ASHAPIROZYSK at balglobal.com. And those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Okay, yeah, and
BAL loves the Gemba Academy. What can I say?
Well, thank you.
Maybe there'll be a 4th person soon.
Right, yeah, there you go. Well, no, it was funny actually. I think I don't know if it was asked for Jacqueline or somebody put on LinkedIn, hey, is anybody like doing anything with lean in the legal industry? And I'm like, why, yes. And I sent him a link to Jacqueline's podcast. So yeah, it's fantastic. Well, keep up the great work, and thanks for coming on. We'll put everything, the links to your social medias and all that kind of stuff in your email in the show notes. So this will be episode 342. Great. So that's gembapodcast.com. Look for episode 342, and we'll link to everything that Andy and I talked about. So again, thanks again, Andy, for coming on. Keep up the great work, and keep on automating.
Thanks so much, Ron. Will do.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.